Hi, this is Jordan Moorhead, and this is the Austin Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I've got John Martin and Justin Rourke on. They own Ascension Realty Group, Tower Property Management. They're longtime Austinites, and they've been investing in real estate here in Austin for a long time. They even have a cool new podcast coming out that they're going to tell us all about here towards the end. Hey, John, how you doing?
What's going on, Jordan? I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. Great to see you. Great to have you on here. I know about a year and a half ago or so, I had Justin on, but I really want to hear your part of the story too, and just hear more about what y'all are up to and where you're going.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. We try to. It's hard to get us both together in the same room because we're both loud and obnoxious. So sometimes it's better to have one or the other. He's going to be joining us soon, so hopefully we don't fall in the suit too much on that end. But yeah, so grew up here, born and raised in Austin, been in real estate since 2011. Really watched the city kind of boom. It's been a really fun ride, and seeing it since I was a kid till now, and having the perspective of growing up and watching the areas that were, you know, small and not much to them turn into these hustling and bustling types parts of the city and little pods that are these meccas, these heartbeats, if you will, that just grow outward from them. It's been a lot of fun to watch and take advantage of making, choices and decisions in the real estate market to help me gain some financial stability and clients as well. I mean, we with the management company, it allows us to kind of be the de facto, investor specialist, if you will, because we rent out anywhere from 40 to 60 properties a month under our management umbrella. We have a little over 600 properties now that we manage. So, cyclically they start coming up this time of year. We have a ton of turnover in the summer months just to kind of keep those rental rates high. So, being able to see these numbers year over year, figuring out what areas and pockets of the city tend to do better, lower days on market, higher rental rates versus sales prices, all these things that I like to tune into and kind of take advantage of on my end as well, and educate my clients to do the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I know we're going to get a lot into more about rental real estate here in Austin. And you guys do have an awesome pulse on the market as your property management company. And not just to promote you here on the podcast, I do refer any client that's interested in property management to your team because they do such a good job. Everybody's so cordial and so timely to get back to you, and they're just on top of everything. So I got to commend you for your company doing a great job too.
Well, you're a sweetheart, man. It's the sum of all the parts. We are very fortunate to have a lot of people that make it work and kind of orchestrate the magic behind the scenes. Justin always likes to say, "Come see how the sausage is made and meet all the team members." And it's we've built it, from the ground up. Him and I started our Austin Java back in 2000. Shoot, when was that? 2014, 15 ish is when we started talking about it, and we were just cocktail napkin writing and riffing at Austin Java on Barton Springs. It's not there anymore, but that was kind of our hangout spot. And the beautiful perspective that we have, and I appreciate what you said, because a lot of people don't get to see the back end of what we do, and it can be pretty chaotic. And Justin and I's perspective, doing every little piece of it from the ground up till we got to a capacity where we could actually pay someone to help us and then start growing from there. It truly is kind of an orchestrating of a bunch of moving parts, and hearing that come from you, especially one of our referral sources, it means a lot, because the people that work for us and with us make it all happen, and we're very grateful to have them.
Yeah, they're awesome. Well, before we get too far here, and I know we're waiting on Justin, he'll be here any minute. Can I ask you, John, what's your favorite restaurant in Austin?
Of course. So I'm going to give you two different answers, because I have my blue collar answer and then my bougie answer. My blue collar is Cabo Bob's always.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't even like putting these two in the same sentence together, but it's like a Chipotle or Freebirds.
Mhm.
The owners of it used to have a fine dining restaurant here that I don't know if it went under or they just pivoted and went somewhere else, but they started Cabo Bob's, which is a kind of like a make your own taco or burrito in a line
Mhm.
situation. They press their tortillas to order and cook them in front of you and have different flavors. They grill all their meat on those ceramic green eggs. So I mean, it's
Yep.
legit kind of barbecue, and it's all local, fresh stuff. They're starting to get big. I think they have restaurants in Houston now. So that's kind of my de facto. I need to feel good and just eat a bunch of good tacos. I go there. Outside of that, I love a little spot called the Shore. It's on 71 out by Oak Hill, kind of out towards the lake. It's just a smaller seafood place. It's got oysters and an oyster bar. A lot of good ceviche. They have jazz music on the weekends and Thursday nights and really good margaritas. So it's probably my favorite spot.
That's awesome. I'll have to try that. I've not been to the Shore. I love Cabo Bob's. And
Nice.
Justin's was a Mexican restaurant in Sunset Valley. If I
Probably
remember.
Flores.
Flores, yeah,
Yeah, he's a
yeah.
Flores frequenter.
Okay.
He's got 3 kids, so it's beneficial to him to find places that have playgrounds tied
Mhm.
to the restaurant, so he can let them run crazy and he can enjoy himself for slight moments.
Yeah, no, I went there. It is a great place. Uh, so, John, can you tell us a little bit more? I know we talked before we started recording here, but you said you're trying to buy a property a year in the Austin area, so you kind of pick certain areas you like to buy in.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the trajectory from that, I always had a goal that I wanted 10 by the time I'm 50. I'm about to pick up my seventh, and I'm 38. So I think I've now grown that number to hopefully be about 20 by the time I'm 50. It's either properties that I lived in for a couple of years, then just owner occupied, then turned into rentals once I moved out and kind of played that game. I have like 3 of those in my portfolio. The rest are just, I've actually been fortunate to have clients that find new construction homes that they want me to represent them on. And when I go start crunching the numbers and talking to these sales reps, if I like it, I can kind of leverage my stance and my agency to get in there and get one for my own. So that's what's
Mhm.
happening now. It's a community called Morningstar up north. Braun Homes is the builder. They're doing like 6.5% back of flex cash, even for investors. So yeah, I mean, I'm basically using most of that to buy my rate down. You can put it towards the sales price, but the most impact I see on the monthly side when I'm trying to cover my monthly costs is getting that rate down. So it's a beautiful deal with me because I can leverage my commission too to kind of knock down some of the closing costs and some of the cash that I need up front. And in the meanwhile, represent another investor buyer client of mine that I can ride with. And I always like doing it because it makes them feel confident too about what they're getting into. If I'm dipping into, and it's
Mhm.
fun. We get to do that. So I've done that actually like 3 times. And then Justin and I own 2 properties together too. So, I have that. I haven't missed a year over the last 5 years. I'm picking one up, so I hope that keeps going, man. It's getting harder to cash flow based on the sales prices and the rental rates, unless you're putting 50% down.
Mhm.
There was a time where you could put 20% down pretty much in any fringe market and still cover your monthly uh, payments, but the rates have really kind of squashed that, so it makes it challenging.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I think I love the live in and move out and keep it strategy too. I think that anytime you can keep a property and not have to sell it, you're going to be so much happier 20, 30 years later compared to that little money you made right there to put in the next down payment. Or maybe you're going to use that money on yourself or invest it. Like if you can keep that property and in 30 years it's appreciated and paid itself down, you're going to be so happy. So I think that's a great
Exactly.
strategy.
And that's my motto. I mean, I convince people to not sell their homes all the time.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to have a machine and platform behind me to help support, the rental process and management. But, my whole piece on it's like, people kind of chop me up a little bit about not selling any of them during the crazy time of year. But it's like, I'm in such a good position with all of them, with the rental rates, the interest rates, the price point on which I bought most of my portfolio, that if I ride this out for another, 15 years plus while someone's paying down my mortgage for me, it's appreciating at the same time. My out of pocket cash is null compared to what I can
Mhm.
sell them for, in a 20-year to 30-year trajectory. And I try to, that's hard to kind of look at because people want to get that fast cash right now and
Yeah.
sell, but it's that's that perspective of growing up here. Is I see the value, and that freight train may slow down sometimes versus other years. There's no stopping the progress and growth that we have as a city and a market. I mean, the
Mhm.
I-35 corridor alone is just one avenue that will never stop growing. I mean, just by the sheer capacity of what it connects and the transit route that it is for what it is. So I just always see the goal in that, hang on to them even through the hard times and just make it work.
Yeah, and I love that because with, you talk about holding on to them for long term and the long term growth outlook of Texas and especially your I-35 corridor, with many more jobs starting to move to Mexico, like that pipes straight down into Mexico, and a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
that freight's going to continue to come up here. But then the more higher tech jobs are probably always going to be done across the border here, and if all the lower wage, lower tech stuff is being done just south of the border, where do you think the higher tech stuff's going to happen? It's going to happen in Austin, and there's already tons of auto self-driving companies moving here, tons of tech companies moving to this area. So the growth is going to continue to be massive for a long time. And if you can hold on to your property rather than sell it and get that quick cash now, that's where the real magic comes. So take it from
That's the
two
beauty.
realtors. Don't sell your property. Hold on to it.
Yeah, and it's funny. People are like, you don't want me to pay you to sell my house? No, I want you to be happy with me 10 years from now when you go to sell it and make 3 times what you can make today. But I met a guy. Shoot, this was probably 2015, 16 when Justin and I were starting the management company. We went to a lot of NARPM, which is the National Association of Property Management. We would go to their conferences, and I met this one cat. He was an older gentleman. He had about, I don't know, 22 properties in his portfolio that he bought in the 70s or most 70s and 80s, like through over that time. They were all paid off. He
Mhm.
doesn't, this was his job. He self-manages and it's his portfolio. And back then, I mean, average rental rates were 1750, 1850. I mean, you do that times 22 a month, offset that with the taxes and stuff. I mean, the dude's making great money just sitting on rents with those
Yeah.
assets. But then even beyond that, if he wants to go, make a quick $500,000, whatever, he just sells 1 or 2 of them and then gets that liquid. So I remember talking to him and just being like, "That's the secret sauce, man. I want that for myself." So
Mhm.
I try to educate people on that right too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The real money is long term. So I know both you got started around the same time, but what initially attracted you to real estate investing?
You know, I think it just kind of just progressed. When I first got into real estate, I was doing a bunch of leasing. I was an apartment locator. That's how I kind of cut my teeth in real estate. It was
Cool.
quick money. I latched onto this brokerage that's the biggest one in Texas at the time for apartment locating. There's a lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of like I always call it the ghetto of real estate because it's like this like underground network of people that you can make good money doing it. I mean, by year 2 or 3, I was making 6 figures just slanging apartments to people, and what it did. And I'm going off on a tangent to kind of give you the long term kind of reply to your question, but it helped me build a database that I wasn't even aware of. I kept these contacts, and if you lease 80 to 100 people a year, it helped me really grow my database. And at the same time, I would meet all different types of people that would come here from other states and just be so enamored by our price points, depending on where their perspective was or where they were coming from, and just the growth process on that. So that's how it kind of started intriguing me. Justin and I, like I said, we grew up together, so I always knew he was in real estate a couple of years before me. So the first contract I ever wrote, he helped coach me how to do it. I just would just call him and say, "Hey, help me, get this done." We've always been close, so he was a wonderful resource for me when I started to help get my groove in writing contracts. With that, he got to kind of see the lease side of it too, because he would latch on to what I was doing. And then so we both decided, hey, why don't we combine these forces and start Tower. And so once I got into the management aspect of it and actually seeing the rental rates and the reward, and people like that have these massive portfolios of properties that we were able to help, seeing the income from them and then watching year over year rental rates increase, that's really what helped. And I bought my first house myself before I had my daughter, and just was able to leverage that. And that kind of got my beak wet a little bit to say, hey, you can live in this thing for 2 years, knock down some of that principal, carry the note, and then have somebody else pay for it, after that without very much out of pocket. So that was kind of where it started. And I started running with it from there.
That's awesome. Um, do you remember what was your first non-owner occupied rental property? Do you remember what kind of got you into that? Because I know that's a big jump. Like it's
Oh yeah.
it's not easy but it's easier and easier to comprehend to buy a house, move into it, or buy a duplex, move into it, and then keep it when you move out because you've already got it. But that next step of putting down the 20 or 25% and buying a non-owner occupied rental property is a big jump for a lot of people. Do you remember what that was like and which property that was?
Absolutely, and that's a good question, and that again is it's a very challenging, palatable process that is hard to wrap your head around if you've never done the owner occupancy ride. So I don't think I could have done that first without the owner occupancy ones first.
Yeah.
And income's another thing too. I mean, the financial spot I was in was maybe a little bit better, but yes, it was back to that story of having clients that would tee up these sales, these new construction properties for me. It was in Gerald, a place called Sunterra, I-35 corridor, which is north of everything in Austin. Basically, it's about, as north as you can get without getting close to Waco. So, nothing was there. Gerald, when I was a kid, there was a tornado that ran through it in the early 2000s, and that was all it was known for. It was nothing, just farmland. And so when she told me about it, I was like, what's this about? She lived in Hutto, I think, at the time. Her parents were getting furloughed in Chicago because of COVID. So she wanted to find a spot for them to come live in Texas. And it was just cheap. The inventory was like sub 200 grand. I'm talking to the sales rep and these spec homes. I throw them up in 4 months to 6 months, and they're all selected out. It's real easy to kind of just ease your way into it. And I was talking to the sales rep while we were there, touring hers, getting her under contract. And I start looking at rental rates on Zillow, and I'm like, are these for real? And I was like, are these serious rental rates? Back then it was like $1,650, for a $198,000 house, at a 3.5%, 4.5% interest rate. It all made sense. So that was my first one. So I signed up right then before I left and kind of built one. Hers is down the road from mine. So her parents live in that one. She's a client that bought 3 houses from me so far. Now she's one of my agents. So she got into real estate. She's a hustler, man. She does good work. But that was the first one I did. And I remember even putting the 20%, I think I did 25 on that one because you get a little bit better rates.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it goes. These lender incentives are so hard for other lenders to match, but I always tap on my preferred lenders that I work with all the time to kind of comb through stuff. Let me know if you can beat it. Tell me what you think I should do. And I think 25% was the deal. And it was a hard one. It was a little gut punch to write that check. It always is, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you did it in 5 to 10 years too. And when it continues to grow up there, and I'm sure that property you bought for under 200 grand is already worth 250 to 260 at least.
Oh, in COVID, I could have dumped it for about 340 during our crazy time, easy. Wow. And that was like a year or two past that. Now the rental rates, I think I rented out for like 1950. I mean, my monthly nut on it's like $1,400 after the increase of taxes this last year. So it's like, that's the sweet spot. That's not always obtainable, but it depends where you go. The fringe markets are huge. I know you kind of are pretty diverse with what you invest in all over the place, at least in your geographical zone. It doesn't seem like, from what I know, you don't stick to just one spot. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I got stuff from Gerald all the way down to New Braunfels, out east and west too. So that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think for me, what it's always been is, what do I know about the area, or who do I know in the area, and why am I confident this is a good place to invest? So I've never been one that's just, I see this a lot from California investors where, hey, I live somewhere where it's too expensive. I'm just going to shotgun out everywhere and invest wherever I can find that makes the most sense. There might be markets that make more sense. I like San Antonio. I like Louisville. I like Austin. I know these markets. I have family in all these markets. I have friends and trusted colleagues. Obviously, we are in Austin. But for me, it's always been, what do I know about it? And where do I have an advantage because of this? Not just where it works the best. I mean, in Austin, you buy anything probably from Gerald and New Braunfels, your company can manage it and help you take care of it. Like, that's a huge advantage.
And that's a beautiful leverage piece I have. And it I've seen other presentations and other numbers that just don't work. Justin and I, he created this spreadsheet It's called a bang for the buck. I don't know if he's ever shared it with you. You should convince him to kick it over to you. But it's we work on it every quarter, to where every quarter we quantify the average sales price in any given zip code versus the average rental rate, and then spit out kind of a percentage. It's similar to cap rates, but it doesn't go into as much detail. It's pretty cut and dry. It's like, look, what am I paying for it versus what I can rent it out for? And for a long time, like Kyle and Buda were the kings on that ratio always, because of that blue collar I-35 corridor aspect of it. And that's that fringe market. I mean, little places like Hutto and Manor, I remember when 130 was finished. Before 130, the transit routes in and out of there were nothing, and it was hard to get anything done or have any sort of like attraction to it. Now Hutto has that co-op. They had that baseball thing that was supposed to go out there, but the city kind of botched that. I don't know if you know anything about that, but those little pockets, once those main kind of streamlined transit routes come, everything else fills in, at least close to us, because of how expansive things are getting. And if you mirror us to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, the networkings and the inner kind of veins of all the highways, I mean, we're a little baby compared to the infrastructure they have. And I mean, we have so much room to grow. That's why Jarrell's so intriguing. I mean, there was a talk that Disney was going to put a resort out in Jarrell. I mean, like who knows what the next thing is that's going to pop off these little pockets. I mean, even if you go west towards like Leander and head out towards Liberty Hill and where all that stuff is, I mean, that's all that. I mean, they're growing out like crazy. So that's what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think you make such a good point there, because there's areas within 30 minutes of Austin that are just big open fields. There's nothing there. 30 minutes of downtown Austin, you go straight east. That's why Tesla's out there, because there's nothing out there. It's dirt cheap to buy all that land out there compared to what you would have to pay in closer to town. But there's just so many areas that have so much growth potential and haven't even begun. Like that area actually where Tesla's moved to is they've started to finally build the commercial infrastructure that makes it feel like a nice livable area. There's nice gas stations and there's Walgreens popping up and all that sort of stuff. There was never any of that out there before, but over a long-term time horizon, it's going to be a nice place to live. Right now, it kind of feels like you're out in the boonies, but it won't be forever.
Well, it's inevitable. It's like, it's Thanos and Endgame. It's inevitable. It's that growth and the expanse. No matter what, our population is always going to kind of keep growing outward, and those little pockets, that internal workings of the city and how expensive things get pushes out the majority of people that just need to live and own homes and own real estate and rent. So, I mean, that's where those little pockets pop up. And proximity wise, referencing other markets, even if you're 30, 40 minutes from downtown, that's still relatively close in the perspective of other markets. I mean, we do a ton of investors from California, and they see the writing on the wall with us where California was 15, 20 years ago. It's the same kind of deal. These kind of rural areas of California that are now these, the average sales price is over $1 million. That's not too far fetched that we could be there in 20 years. So it's exciting. Texas is crazy, but Austin has a lot of catching up to do as far as with the size and infrastructure of the other massive cities in Texas. And so I think that's the inevitable piece about it. Nothing's going to slow that down to where we're going to match those other metroplexes. And shoot, I mean, San Antonio and Austin is going to be just one big blob at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's crazy to see that. John, what do you think the biggest mistake you've seen made or made yourself as far as it comes to real estate investing? Something other people could learn.
Selling too quick is a huge piece. People that panic sell, I'm seeing a lot of that right now that bought at the tip of the market, and it's painful because you're burning costs every year, and now people are just trying to liquidate. But you're going to lose money. Just kind of ride the storm, I would say. That's probably one thing. Other than that, I think one thing I see that I try to keep people away from is people that are kind of drawn to properties that need a ton of work, that are just, they can pick up on the cheap, that just have a ton of deferred maintenance that needs to happen to them. At the end of the day, if it were me, I'd buy something that's sound and ready to rock, that's 20% more than something I have to put at least 20% into to get it right. So I see people make that move sometimes where they hit these distressed properties thinking they're getting a deal and they don't.
Yeah, if you don't plan for that, it can really sneak up on you. I think that my
It can.
biggest mistake I've made is not planning for that. I bought a lot of those distressed properties. Um, the one that came back and it all worked out well because everything was working out well. But I didn't plan for the maintenance and capex that the property needed, and over the time of owning it, I didn't cash flow the way it should have because I was always dumping money back into the property. So I think that, yeah, you're right there. Like if you're gonna do it, just plan for it, know what you gotta do, have a budget for it right away. Um, make sure that's a solid budget and you have a contingency bid or budget there too. If repairs go over, because they always do.
Budget for
And
the unknowns, because
exactly.
they're gonna be there.
Yeah, no, this property in particular was three sixplexes, and I didn't budget for doing the capex they needed, all the windows, all the doors, all the HVACs, that kind of stuff, all needed to be done. I didn't budget for it. So it was always just one at a time. As time went on, something broke, something needed to be replaced. There's always something going. So, it ate into the cash flow pretty good.
Yeah, and that's not fun when you're
Yeah.
burning that. It takes some of the thrill away too when you're having to always walk backwards, and it kind of deflates you a little bit. I flipped a house when I first started getting into real estate in Pflugerville. God, there's nothing out there now. I'd be curious to see what it's like. And we didn't make any money. We lost a little bit. It was very educational for me. But what I learned really quick, it's like what Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's like
Mhm.
you can plan as much as you want to kind of budget these things, but until you start ripping down these walls, seeing what's behind there, it's challenging to really rope that in. So that's another piece too. I think people get into the house flipping game thinking that it's easy to maneuver the cost expectations, and that's very challenging. From labor to material to unknowns, it can become a headache. But that property I'm glad I did it because I learned so much.
Mhm.
But financially, it was a stupid move.
Yeah, and those timelines get so crazy too. You said, "Oh, it's gonna take 3 months." 6 months later, you're almost done.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
That's
always
always the case.
budget more and budget more time.
Exactly.
Um, John, if you had to start over today, is there anything you'd do differently?
I mean, I think in my real estate career, I would have started earlier in my life and
Yeah.
started. Tim Heil was around when Justin and I were in high school, and we remember running into him at Gold's Gym, which was a World's Gym on William Cannon. And he was like right out of high school starting to get his real estate license. We are like, this nerd, go to college and enjoy yourself, And now
Yeah.
he had some pedigree help with him. But if I were to do it again, I think I would have started early in my 20s and really started cultivating the mindset that I have obtained and kind of worked towards over my 12, 13 years in real estate. So that would have been something I would have done. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think the beauty of it, the joy is kind of in the mystery in real estate. It's like we wake up every day and don't know exactly what's gonna unravel, what kind of
Mhm.
fire we got to put out. So I enjoy that part of it. Actually, one thing that I do wish I would have done from the beginning is separated my personal phone from a work phone right away.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, that way I could keep a divide between my actual cell phone number and people that need me. I mean, we have things in place to do it, but inevitably, my cell phone is everywhere, so it's hard for me to get away from this little virtual prison that sits next to me all the time.
I like that virtual prison. But certainly, as a realtor, I think that's one of the hardest things is that you're essentially always on call.
Oh yeah,
No matter what you do to set boundaries and make sure you have things taken care of. But, yeah, no, certainly. So starting sooner as both a realtor and a real estate investor and having
absolutely.
a little bit more of a divide there certainly would help.
Well, it's just like asking somebody in California, and I hate to go back to that, but what would you have done differently 30 years ago? And I bet you if you took 50 people out of any given spot of California, they would all say, I wish I would have bought property 30 years
Mhm.
ago. I mean, properties in my early 20s in Austin were dirt cheap compared to where they are now. If I could have done that from the beginning,
Yeah.
I would have been okay.
Even looking at properties that sold in '07, '08, when prices supposedly were really high, you look at them and you say, man, I would buy 100 of those if those were on sale today.
Easy. There, I remember like the Brown building downtown, that like condo building that was down there. I think
Mhm.
that was in '08 was when it was like, it was built right before there. So it was one of the, downtown was one of the first real estate pockets during our little crash to really feel the effects because of
Mhm.
where the price points were back then. But there were a few people that had the cash to gobble up all these little condos down there, and they waited 2 or 3 years and made a fortune off of it because they bought when they could, and even back then, I mean, yeah, and that's what's so bullish about Austin. I mean, you look at the stats of the sales prices going into '08, it dipped a little bit, but after a 2 year period where they came out of '08, like in 2010, they were higher than where they went in going into the recession. So it's like,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that to me, it's like there's not much that's going to really crumble this thing on a, at least on a kind of a micro scale, but it's exciting.
yeah, super exciting. So what's next for you, John? Where are you guys going? Where are the company's going? I know your goal, you want to have 20 properties by 50, but what's next for Ascension Realty Group and Tower Property Management? I know 600 is a lot more than when I talked to Justin 2 years ago or so. I think you were at 400 or something.
We've been fortunate to have the growth. We're at like 619, I think was the count. Our staff kind of we have our team meetings every Tuesday and Thursday, and one of the first things we hit is where are we on our count. We set goals at the end of the year to try to hit that following year, and we kind of set our goals based on the growth that we had the previous year. And that percentage is kind of exponential and hard to really quantify. When you talk percentages, it's more so where do we want to be, but to answer your question, we just started a construction company. It's called Red Oak
Oh,
Construction. So
cool.
it's that one's something took about a year to kind of figure out and cultivate. It's advantageous to us because we can control a lot of the move outs and move ins within our portfolio
Mhm.
with this entity. There has to be a lot of disclosure of relationships and full transparency to tell landlords, hey, this is an income stream for us, but we're still going to make sure you're taken care of. We're going to beat the next competitor, but it makes sense for us from a monetary perspective because we can control a lot of things. If we have things happen that we need to jump on, it's easier for us to land on that, and absorb those costs. So that we want to grow that and get that bigger. We're trying to keep it within our portfolio before we allow other people outside of tower
Oh,
properties
okay.
to use
That was
it.
going to be my next question.
Well, it's mainly just a bandwidth thing.
Mhm.
We especially during our summertime, we have so many turns. I mean, I think we have 30 move outs this next week, like something silly. So,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that we have all hands on deck, and we don't want to water down the service that we provide to our landlords. That's another piece too. It's like if we can't manage the entities we own to help service their properties first and foremost, then we lose our value proposition. So we are going to wait to unroll that to people, but as soon as we can, we'll let the whole market center know, hey, who needs us? We're here. But
That's so hard to find is good contractors, especially
yeah,
good contractors that do stuff like turns and smaller stuff. Like keep
right.
turning it, pouring paint, lights, that kind of stuff.
Well, and the
So,
beautiful part about what we can offer, it's security. We try to leverage and be as fair as possible to tenants and landlords, and there we outline very clearly to tenants, hey, if you don't want to be charged for these certain things, here's what you need to do. But if they don't do those, that's where our bread and butter comes in with these terms. It's like it makes us look like heroes with our landlords because they get to get their property back to the normal working condition without spending a bunch of money if we have the
oh, yeah.
evidence to do that, which is the secret sauce. So that's good. I think we want to get the next milestone for number count. We want to get to 1,000 doors.
Wow.
It's hard. The behind the scenes, we're trying to divide like mitosis almost our employee staff so that we can have other geographical areas to extend our reach a little bit. If it takes us longer than an hour and a half to get to it, we're really not doing the service that we're paid to do. So Texas, getting beyond the Austin market, getting down into San Antonio, going into other markets that are further out from our reach is the next big goal for the management side.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I know that there's just such a good need for, there's such a big need for good property management.
Absolutely.
John, John, do you have a favorite business or mindset book that you like to recommend?
I don't. I kind of just dabble. I'm a big Audible guy, so I hit it when I drive a lot. I'm more into kind of sci-fi and fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
So the dynamics between Justin and I, we're very yin and yang. He is very laser focused, more brainy in a lot of senses, and I won't say that if he's here because his head will grow bigger than it needs to. But he's a lot more into kind of you're working out the inertia on the back end with the numbers and the details and stuff like that. I'm more of a kind of a broad stroke guy where I like to hit a lot of different things. So I don't think I have one that I could point out that I like. I do a lot of motivational reading in the morning just to kind of help me meditate and get ready for the day. But I'm cynical in the sense that my motivation comes from me, man. I go to war with myself every single day. So if I learn how to whoop myself, it kind of keeps me moving in the right direction. That's worked so far.
Have you ever read The Miracle Morning?
No.
It's a great book. You should definitely check that out. I follow a loose framework of their morning every morning. I think that, like you saying, I wake up and I have to battle with myself to get myself focused and where I need to be the best person I can for each day. So that Miracle Morning helps me a lot with that.
Nice. Okay, I'll check it out. I have very routine oriented, so I have part of my routine when I put my shoes on and kind of sit down. I read some kind of daily meditation type snippets. So anything that I can integrate into that will help. It kind of gets me a little woo-saw before I go into the chaos, every day.
Oh yeah, no. With what we do, there's always something, like you said, catching on fire. Not literally most of the time, but
hopefully.
there's hopefully no fire.
Yeah, you never know.
John, what's the
All right.
best way for people to get a hold of you?
So info@towerprops.com is kind of the main piece that goes to my whole team. So anybody that's looking for management help in that regard, it kind of catches us. Our websites too. I don't know if you can kind of broadcast what we do, but towerprops.com is our management site.
Yeah, super easy.
It's real easy. And ascensionaustin.com is our sales side. So, you Google us, we try to stay out there in every little platform we can. So, but the best way to get a hold of me is, again, my virtual prison. So if you ever need me, this thing never leaves my side.
Absolutely. Do you have any sort of Instagram handle or social media with either the businesses?
Yeah, we have pages on pages. So ARG has Ascension Realty Group. Tower Property Management has their own page. Justin and I have our own respected personal business pages. So I do a ton of social media stuff. I try to use that platform to promote myself and what we do, and kind of pump our chest as much as we can.
What's your Instagram handle?
So the one for myself is John Martin Realtor, which is easy to think of. Tower Property Management is just Tower Property Management.
Awesome.
So if you don't follow me, Jordan, follow me.
I know. I'll make sure I get that done after this call. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on here today. Absolutely. Make sure to follow John Martin on Instagram at John Martin Realtor. Obviously, follow me at Jordan_Moorhead. And if you need help with property management in the Austin, Texas area, info@Tower Property Management.
Tower Props.
Tower Props. Towerprops.com. Info@towerprops.com. They're the best that I've seen here in the area, and you absolutely need to reach out.
You're the man, Jordan. Thank you. This has been fun, man. Let's do it again. You got to come on to ours too whenever we get that rolling. So
let's do it. Oh yeah. So you're gonna have one coming out called Rough Housing. Is that ROUGH?
Yep, RUGH, Rough Housing. So we're still playing with the words a little bit, but it's going to be kind of the epitome of what happens behind the curtains in real estate, the contradictory to the real estate, selling sunset. And we want to show you kind of what really happens, and what we really want to promote is bring people on like yourself that we've worked with that are real, take off some of the monkey suit and just let's hash it out and get back into the nitty gritty of what is real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, man. So come on with it. I'd love to have you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John. We'll talk here soon.
All right, Jordan. Take care, brother.